Okay, we are live, people, but we gotta let it breathe. There's that one or two or three trolls on YouTube who are like, just go. It's like, dude, we can't. We actually have three streaming destinations that we cannot connect until after we've gone live. So we gotta let that happen. Hope everyone's doing great. Welcome in. It's another edition of the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me, back in the saddle, my fellow football priest and partner in crime. You know him, you love him, Zack Kelberman. Zack, my brother, the Broncos. A lot of questions. You were out yesterday, and a lot of the questions, a lot of the conversations centered around where's Riley Moss? Is he going to be good to go this week? You know, he's had 2 full weeks to recover. Plus this next coming week, you know, if there was an eye toward the Colts game, they could make him kind of limited and then roll him out on Sunday. But it's not the tea leaves are kind of reading that he's not going to be ready for a minute. Breakdown though, Broncos worked out a cornerback, one of the circumstantial pieces of evidence on this trail.
Yeah, they brought in former Lions starting cornerback Jerry Jacobs, who spent a little time this summer with the Rams, released with an injury settlement. He's healthy again and looking for a new team. The Broncos worked him out, did not sign him, though, at this time, but it lends credence to the fact that Riley Moss, his knee injury, the MCL, was worse than Sean Payton let on. I read from Mike Kliss a few days ago that they expect him to be out for the Colts game, maybe out for the following week as well. And they have to just get by without Levi Wallace on the field. I think that's why another part of it, Chad, is they can't afford to have Levi Wallace burn to the tune of 200 yards once again. So whether it's Chris Abrams-Drain, who Sean Payton talked up that you wrote about, Chad, whether it's Demaryius Mathis, anyone is better than Levi Wallace at this point.
You have multiple Bronco insiders saying, hey, I don't think he's going to be ready this week. Maybe not even next week. Circling Cincinnati, Benjamin Albright, KOA Radio, said, hey, circle Cincinnati. It's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm like, oh, man, that's brutal. Which, honestly, Zack, it wouldn't be – I mean, obviously, it's a disappointment. But it wouldn't be as surprising if Sean Payton, day of the game that he got injured, is like, nah, it's no big deal. We thought maybe he could have even gone back in. Now here we are. And by the way, they opt not to place him on injured reserve. And here we are, staring down the barrel of the Broncos facing another game without Riley Moss. And I wish we could trust that they're not going to roll Levi Wallace out there again. I'm hoping that it's Chris Abrams-Drain, and we'll see what they do with the workout today. But Levi Wallace, for now, Zack, and I know wasn't all his fault, but for now, he's persona non grata. Broncos country does not want to see him on the grass. And it looked like they kind of came to their senses toward the tail end of that Browns game, Zack, when KAD came in.
He's the new Demaryius Mathis. Like, we'd never wanted to see Demaryius Mathis on the field again after he kept getting burned and flagged, and Levi's the same way. I get the thing with Riley Moss, though. It's like, do you want to push it and risk further injury, or do you want him to get healthy for a potential playoff run? So get better soon, Riley. Unfortunately, Chad, the opponents they have coming up all have decent receiving options, starting with Indianapolis on Sunday, Josh Downs, Michael Pittman. They have a running quarterback. You would like your full complement of defensive weapons to be out there, but unfortunately, it's looking like Riley's a no-go.
Exactly. You think coverage, right? Oh, you're missing your corner. And yes, on Riley. But also, let's not forget, when he got hurt, he was this team's second leading tackler. Right. And even now, with the better part of 2 games missed, he's third on the team. So for a running quarterback like Richardson, you'd like to have him out there, Zack, shoring up the boundary. Papa Bear, what's good, big dog? Great to see you. Love you. He says, good evening, Broncos country. Chad, Zack, and Deacon Scott. Hashtags, God bless the USA. 10-7 plus. Let's go, Bo. MHH for life. Buckham ×3. Denver Broncos for life. Knicks for 6. SEAL team Knicks. I love it. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Thank you so much. I'm seeing some questions here. Real quick, I want to just settle this about, hey, can you tell us about this Jacobs dude? And I'm just going to go ahead and quote from Zack here. All right, this cat, 2021 undrafted free agent. He's 5'11", 203. He has 29 NFL starts. with the Lions, totaling 116 solo tackles, 23 pass deflections, 4 interceptions. He, according to Zach here, joined the Rams in July, was waived in August with an injury settlement. And we could get into like reading from Zach's well-sourced article here, helping everybody know who this guy is, his scouting profile from NFL.com when he was a prospect. But bottom line is he's an experienced young veteran that kind of, Zach, reminds me of a slightly shorter Levi Wallace.
It's so funny that you say that, Chad. I did a little more digging on him. I found some quotes from Dan Campbell, Lions head coach, also Aaron Glenn, Lions defensive coordinator. And the way they were describing him was a lot like Levi Wallace, where he'll come up with a play, but then he'll get burned, on 5 other plays. It's a little inconsistent. He can't really handle too much zone. He's more of a man press cornerback. So it's just another healthy body that's not Levi Wallace. But if they're comparable, then you're not really gaining anything. Please get healthy soon, Riley Moss.
Dude, it sounds insane, but I would rather see Demaryius Mathis out there. And it's not that I'm ready to just completely bury Levi and never to be seen again, but that was so bad. How do you bounce back from it? I don't trust that didn't complete. I don't know. And he hasn't been with us long enough to know. I can't trust that hasn't completely shattered his confidence. And you have other bodies, like try some other cats. Sam Bam, what's going on, big dog? Great to see you. Thank you for the super chat. He says, evening, guys. A good bye week for the Broncos, especially with the Chargers losing. Indeed. When Scott and I went live last night, there wasn't much that had happened over the weekend, so we titled it around kind of reviewing how the games went down on Sunday that affected the Broncos playoffs. But while we were streaming, of course, it was Chiefs Chargers, and that bad boy came all the way down to the wire, and the Chiefs won, which really helped. So back to Sam Bam. A good bye week for the Broncos with the Chargers losing. I think the Broncos go 3-1 the rest of the way, which might give them the 5 seed in the playoffs. Go Broncos. Yeah, if they go 3-1, Sam, as long as that one isn't a loss to the Chargers, it's probably the 5 seed, which, you go like this, Zach. Do you want to wild card weekend go upstate New York or go take on Russ and the Steelers back east? Either way, you're going back east.
I'll tell you who I want in round 1, preferably, is Houston. They are completely beatable this year, and I would like to have that easier quote-unquote matchup. But that Chiefs, did you see? I'm sure you did. The ending to that Chiefs game was so insane. I can't believe the luck they have, Chad. The New England Patriots, severe PTSD when you thought that kick was going to miss, but it bounces off the upright, and of course it goes in, and the Chiefs win the division for another year. But Sam, to your question here, there's a 3-way tie for the 5 seeds: Chargers, Ravens, and Broncos. Unfortunately, the Broncos lost the head-to-head against Baltimore and the Chargers already. So, like Chad said, they would have to go 3-1 and then get some help along the way. The 7 seed, I think, is a little more realistic. But even in there, I'm not really scared of anyone. If the Broncos can play up to their potential, and it seems like they're gathering momentum, they can go toe-to-toe with the entire NFL.
And it also feels like that Baltimore game was a millennia ago. Like, this team has already evolved quite a lot since then.
Very fluky.
It's really nice to see the Denver Broncos peaking at the right time. Like, we're used to them self-destructing about right now, at least in the post-Peyton Manning era. I want to grab this real fast, and then we'll get to some – let me just grab this, and then we'll grab some matters of business here. But String Guy, good to see you. I see here that it's a night off for you, so hey, enjoy it, big dog. He says, I still haven't gotten an answer as to why we didn't have PS2 guarding Judy and why we were playing so much zone. Now, the question about the zone, I can't tell you. We haven't heard from Vance Joseph yet. We'll hear from him on Thursday, all right? But Sean Payton did address why PS2 wasn't solely blanketing Judy. And the answer, to paraphrase him, is that they did try. It was attempted by the defensive staff, and they felt like it weakened them schematically because with him following Judy up and down the formation, it was kind of a tell as to what they were showing and what they were doing on defense. And look, Jameis Winston can at times, Zach, be a turnover machine. We know this, but he's a gunslinger and a very experienced veteran, and his football IQ, despite the tropes out there about Jameis Winston, is very, very high. And so they decided to pull back on PS2 shadowing Judy. In my opinion, Zach, it was that decision backfired. You couldn't have literally done any worse. You might as well have let PS2 shadow him and take your chances with them kind of knowing, because it still comes down, Zach, to execution on execution, man on man, and, beat us. So I think it was an opportunity missed, but that was Sean Payton's feeble kind of explanation for it.
Yeah, I'm not really buying it either, because from the outset, why wouldn't you want your top cornerback defending the opponent's top receiver? That's just usually how it goes. And it's proof that it wasn't a schematic thing, it was a Levi Wallace thing, because when he was moved to another receiver, when PS2 was on Judy, Jameis Winston was looking Levi's way and still completing passes against him. So I don't know if they had overconfidence in Levi Wallace. I don't know if they had underconfidence in Jerry Jeudy performing like he did, but that, I'll say it again like I did in the gut reaction, was one of the most brain dead coaching moves I've seen in quite some time.
Speaking of the under, guys, hey, we got to talk to you about Underdog Fantasy, which is the place to play if you're a sports fan looking to win money while you're watching sports. We've been seeing more and more comments of our awesome audience and community taking advantage of these offers that Underdog Fantasy has here on the show and partnered with us and having a lot of fun, making a few bucks, enjoying these football games. Join over 5 million fans who are already playing on Underdog Fantasy. With their pick'em game, you could win money by making entries with your favorite players, your favorite Broncos. Compete against other players just by selecting higher or lower. Really simple, really intuitive on 2 or more player stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn every touchdown into a dub with Underdog.
And with their champs game, you can win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on player stats like passing yards, interceptions, touchdowns, and much more. Like, for example, will Bo Nix have higher or lower than 220 passing yards next week? Will Nix have higher or lower than 1.5 passing touchdowns? Every dog deserves a second chance. And with Underdog Rescues, you can get your money back and receive a promo if an early injury causes your entry to lose.
I love that safety net. Clutch. Download the Underdog app today. Use our code MHuddle, as you see on the screen, to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Again, download the Underdog app today. Use our code MHuddle to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Every player, every touchdown. Just select, real simple, higher or lower on Underdog.
Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply, void in Colorado. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY.
All right, back to the conversation. We got the Ronk checking in. What's good, big dog? Good evening, he says. Chad and Zach on the Mile High Huddle podcast. Go Bo Broncos. Yes,
good,
indeed.
Michael.
Absolutely. Zach, I want to read, since the conversation so far has focused on the cornerback situation. I also want to get to what Sean Payton, your article today too, Zach, about what he said as to why they moved on from Josh Reynolds after throwing him a few $1 million. But first here, I want to read this. This is what Sean Payton said. He was asked about the 12 snaps that Chris Abrams-Draine played late in that game against the Browns. How did he do, coach? He said, quote, good. He's smart. He has a savviness to him. I think he's getting stronger physically. I thought he handled his role well Monday night, going in there and playing. I thought he had a pretty good game in the kicking game. That's important. So overall, I was pleased, close quote. Zach, we were seeing Levi Wallace get turned around, spun by the speed, the blazing speed. It was a harsh reminder that, in fact, Jerry Jeudy's damn fast. And guess who has a 4.440? Chris Abrams-Draine. So get him out there. It's time to let Levi Wallace be your, oh no, it's the apocalypse, send him out on the field option.
If you talk to Steelers fans, like if you read their tweets, they are not sad to see Levi Wallace gone. Apparently, this is who he is. And the Steelers defense, they don't let many good players go. So there's a reason why he was available. Chris Abrams-Draine looked better from the outset in the preseason. He has the length, he has the ball skills. You mentioned the athleticism, the speed. I would 100% gamble on his development and see what you have, because there's at least a ceiling there. There's no ceiling with Levi Wallace. It's not even a floor, for being honest.
Indeed. Some hellos. We got David Yunkin in the house early with us. We've given some shouts to String Guy. William, what's going on? Yeah, so the rumors, I'm sure you've seen this by now. Moss is not expected back in the next 2 games, although there could be a surprise. You never know. Time will tell. BNS, good to see you. Hey, the fact that the Bolts lost yesterday, well, that makes a win versus the Colts, then a win versus the Bolts, a clincher, and possible 5 seed, depending, of course, on the Ravens. Yeah, Zach, I'm going to take a look. What do you think about where the Ravens are while I pull up their remaining schedule?
A couple weeks ago, I predicted a Ravens-Lions Super Bowl, and I'm, halfway eating my words, because the Ravens don't look as powerful. I think their defense isn't as strong as they were last year after losing Mike McDonald. And if they get their running game shut down with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, they are susceptible. Like you said earlier, Chad, that game against the Broncos feels like it was a year ago. It feels like it was almost more a fluke. If they played again, I guarantee that game would be much closer.
So here's what the Ravens are looking at from here on out. They are also on bye this week. It's still technically week 14 with Cowboys, Bengals, but coming out. So starting Sunday, they've got at the Giants, home against Pittsburgh Steelers, at the Houston Texans, home against the Browns, and that closes things out. So the Giants, that'll be a mop-up game. Yeah. But all 3 of those remaining games, I mean, Cleveland Browns, they beat them earlier in this season. They probably won't do it again, but especially with something to play for the Ravens in this case. But still, that's a significantly, Zach, stiffer remaining slate than, say, the Broncos.
And those are always tough divisional games too. So it's not going to be a gimme for Baltimore by any means. But I more so look at it, Chad, 5 seed, 7 seed. It's going to shake out how it shakes out. The Broncos have to take care of business. The Colts game is basically a playoff game. If they don't win that, then all this is moot anyway.
And meanwhile, for what it's worth, the Chargers get the Bucks on Sunday at home, then the Broncos week 16, then road trip East Coast, New England Patriots, and then at the Raiders. So they've got, aside from the Bronco game, a little bit, I mean, they've got 2 competitive opponents and then Patriots, Raiders. So Broncos really have, if they want to make sure it happens for them, we're back to the starting point, Zach, of control your destiny by winning. You just have to win these games. And Indy's a sleeper, guys. Like, you can't look past this team, even though it's got a lot of warts. Richardson's been up and down. He's left much to be desired, especially for a guy basically 2 seasons into being the former number 4 overall pick in the draft. But I was looking at him today, Zach, 5-4 as a starter. So they're a winning ball club with him as the starter. 1,500 yards passing. He's got a poor touchdown to interception ratio, 7-9. But he also has 400 yards of rushing offense and another 4 scores. So, again, this is one of those games where, golly, it'd be damn handy to have arguably your best tackler on the field, let alone a guy who can cover in Riley Moss.
They're also extremely well coached, the Colts, with Shane Steichen. I'm a fan of his. That Scott and I talked about that last week. The offense for the Broncos, I think, is going to have to step up here. This can't devolve into a 12-9 game, because that's where Indy wants it. It seems like Richardson is like a great value version of Cam Newton, and if you let him hang around long enough, then he can surprise you and come back and beat you. This is a statement game from the Broncos on offense. No excuse now. They had a week with the bye to get healthy. Bo's perfectly good to go. Let's see some points.
Patrick, aloha back at you. Colts. Seems like a win and in. Well, really, you got to get through these next 2 games and win them both. And then, the world's your oyster. But, hey, guys, real quick, make sure you're following our podcast on X, on Twitter, at the MHH Pod. Follow the main account, too, at Mile High Huddle. Tweets all day long, breaking news. My partner here at Kelberman NFL on X, myself at Chad and Jensen, and keep the follows coming on Instagram at mile_high_huddle. Tons of Broncos content dropping there on the reg. And while I'm there, just going to give some shouts to the Instagram users tonight with us. We're still trying to get to know y'all. We know a few of you, okay, but this is still in its infancy, us streaming to Instagram. So what's up to Illa Dave, John Morse? What's up? King Sauce, Rourke, who is Josh, Leroy Williams. We know Leroy. So anyway, back to the conversation here. Yeah, a lot of people here still, Zach, really not wanting to see Levi Pearl. Great to see you. Hope you're doing well tonight, my friend. The Ronk is saying, yo, Levi better not play. Put Chris Abrams-Drain in over Levi Wallace. I don't know why that. I mean, the media at this point, I think it's pretty safe to say, Scott, you'll probably agree with me on this. Sean Payton's kind of got him cowed to a point where there's certain things they would ask almost any other head coach. They just kind of don't have the guts. They don't want that stare down or the kind of, it's an altercation. It's a conflict. A lot of people, they want to avoid conflict. But hey, coach, that was a brutal showing from Levi Wallace. How does he bounce back from that? And what do you do as a coaching staff to ensure your secondary is not put in that position again with Riley Moss still on the mend? Boom. Pretty fair question, Zach. Ask it. Didn't get asked today. There were some vague sketches around the issues, such as, hey, talk about your pass defense against Cleveland, where he said, quote, oh, we talked about it after the game. Obviously, there are things when the game ends that you look back on, wish you could have done differently. Finding a way to put your best players against their top receiver. There were a handful of things, not just on defense, but all three phases that we would have done differently, and we have to learn from that, close quote. And that's one thing I'll say from coach is, look, Zach, we know that you learn from experience, right? Like, we get that. But that's been one of his themes when things don't shake out is, it didn't go the way we thought, and we got to learn from that. It's like, dude, maybe your preparation could be a little better. I don't know. I'm probably picking nits here. They're 8-5. Let's not, Zach, look this gift horse in the mouth.
No, I mean, I don't understand. How do you try to find a way to match your best defender against the other player's best offensive player? It seems like it's a cop out. And also, Chad, they didn't learn from their mistakes because this happened at Baltimore. We just talked about that game. Zay Flowers, PS2 was not guarding him. That's the number one receiver in Baltimore, and he tore him up all game. So I think we're over analyzing it because it comes down to it's still Vance Joseph. He's been given a lot of credit, and we've overlooked a lot of his previous, history with the Broncos. This is still the same guy that made coaching mistake after coaching mistake when he was the head coach, coaching mistake as a DC. The same guy that came in after Wade Phillips won a Super Bowl and completely tore down that defense. He is still a flawed coach, Chad.
BNS, the Colts game is for all intents and purposes a playoff game,
Yep.
a must win. Long live Da Priest. # all Pro Bowls. What's up, Zach? Yes, indeed. For all intents and purposes, you're absolutely right, BNS. But giving you some shouts there with the troll, of course, good-natured trolls. That.
Listen, I mean, as long as he keeps playing well, BNS, I'll take it on the chin. I'll say I'll hold my hand up about Garrett Bowles, but we'll see.
So, Mr. Producer, trying to help make sense of why you didn't see PS2 and just some of the why are you playing more zone. So he says here, Greg Olson explained it well. You play more zone coverage when you don't trust the QB decision making. You play man when you don't trust the receivers. So that's why. But Levi didn't know what he was doing out there, which created gaping holes in the zone. So there's a kind of succinct explanation of some of the base strategies when coaches decide, hey, am I calling zone? Am I calling man?
Could be. I mean, I've had my gripes about VJ not putting PS2 in man press and playing off coverage and zone. So again, I think it's a coaching thing. I hate to be repetitive.
Phil McLaughlin down in Tucson, proven Broncos country is not a geographic location, baby. It's a state of being. So good to have you with us tonight. Philly says, good evening, Chad, Zach, and Deacon Scott. Let's face it, VJ screwed up. After Wallace got beat the first time, adjustments should have been made. Wallace should have gotten help, and PS2 should have been moved. # Buckham, MHH for life, Broncos for life. You isn't wrong, my friend. Nothing you said there is wrong. And let's just hope when Sean Payton says, "Hey, well, we saw a bunch of things we did wrong. We're going to learn from that." Let's hope what he's saying is the truth. What's going on, Big Earn? Go Broncos country. Only Bo Nix for 6 Sunday, December 15th. Yeah, let's go 9-5. Let's see it. Ostendorf, what's good? With Russell Wilson, we had to rely on the defense to win games. Now we can count on offense to win games if the defense falters. A huge improvement, Zach.
And we saw that Monday night. That's why I tweeted and said on the gut that it's not the same old Broncos. The same old Broncos would have got blown out because the defense couldn't do it all. But now the offense has to compensate. And I think that's going to be the same thing on Sunday. Like I said earlier, it can't devolve into a field goal battle. The Broncos offense has to come out against Indy and put some points on the board.
So I'm going to do Cindy here a solid. It is a unique name. And by the way, he spells his name Chris, Kris, for what it's worth, Chris Abrams Drain. But look right here on the jersey, Abrams hyphen Drain, Draine. So there you have it, Sydney. Sorry, I said Cindy. There you have it, Sydney. Hope that helps you. It's a name that you'll probably, as time marches on, become much, much more familiar with. And yes, let's take a moment here. Thank you, Ronk. I'm glad. I didn't want to forget this. I should have opened with this. I planned to talk about it. Even made a note here in front of my computer so I wouldn't forget. But today is the 3-year anniversary of Demaryius Thomas's passing, December 9th. So big ups to DT. Rest in peace. One of the top 2 Denver Broncos receivers of all time. Borderline Hall of Famer. If he was a Cowboy, Zach, would he be going into the Hall of Fame since he did not only bring home a ring, considering his production? If he was a Dallas Cowboy, he's got a ring. He set a Super Bowl receiving record in a loss and just shy of 10,000 yards. If he was a Cowboy, would he end up in the Hall of Fame?
He also has one of the most iconic playoff plays of all time.
True.
So if he was a Cowboy, a Niner, a Packer, he would probably end up getting in. And just awfully tragic, Chad. I think we all remember where we were when we found that news out. I was at the gym and there was those unconfirmed reports and couldn't believe it. Still can't believe it. I remember the first game after his passing, the Broncos played so inspired, so emotional. It's still tough to grip with.
Yeah. And just the shocking, you just don't, these athletes that we all come to love and support, and you just view them as Superman almost. And yeah, we know everybody's mortal and everyone's time will come, but not a guy that's still in his 30s, such a tragedy. But he did, Bebe, as he was called coming out of Georgia Tech, he did make a huge impact on the world and helped his family, helped his mother when she got out of prison, helped a lot of people who weren't related to him in the communities that he was involved in, both in Colorado and Georgia. So big ups to DT, RIP, and we definitely miss him.
Yeah, rest in peace, DT. Forever. Long live DT.
Let's see here. Todd, well, hold on. Let's see. Todd, I can see a win against the Bengals and Colts and losses to the Chargers and Chiefs.
They better not lose to Kansas City. That game won't matter, fortunately, in Week 18.
Would that be enough to get us in the playoffs? I don't know. However, even missing the playoffs with that record would make the Broncos' year a huge success. Yeah, so basically, you have a margin of error to guarantee you get that 7th seed and thus a playoff berth, snapping this drought. You have a margin of error of 1 loss. You can't afford more than 1 loss in these remaining 4 games. Now, there's a chance you could lose 2. Then all of a sudden you're back in the ball game of tiebreakers and certain things being outside your control. To keep it within your grip, they do still have a 2-game lead. You've got a 1-loss margin for error. And considering the slate, Zach, I mean, again, Colts are a little bit of a sleeper. Don't completely go go to sleep on them. But considering the slate of games, I think a 3-1 finish is probably plausible. I think it's very, very possible and maybe even borderline likely.
I mean, realistically, I think that one loss could come against the Chargers or the Bengals, who are not going to be playing for the playoffs more than likely, but their offense is so potent. Burrow's having a great year. So this is why Sunday against Indy, this is a playoff game. It is a must win. If the Broncos want to go to the playoffs and give themselves some sort of margin for error, this is a must win on Sunday.
Yeah, Rod Smooth saying, I wish Wade Phillips was the DC.
Sam.
Yeah, that was just kind of a weird, awkward thing. And the irony of the whole thing is, when Gary Kubiak took over as head coach following Foxy and Elway's mutual decision to part ways, when Andrew Luck came in 2014, his third year in the league, and upset the number 1 seeded Broncos at home in the divisional round, his original plan, Kubiak, was VJ as defensive coordinator. But the Bengals, the Brown family, would not let him out to go do it. And so their second option, Zach, turned out to be one of those blessings in disguise, Wade Phillips. And then you get that phenomenal 2015 defense, bring home the bacon, so to speak, the Lombardi. And then even 2016, yet you still had the majority of that defense intact. And it was also excellent. Top 2, top 3 defense both years that Wade was here. And then they just couldn't quite get on the same page with what his role was going to be. He wanted to be the highest paid coordinator, reportedly, Zach, after what he achieved with the defense in Super Bowl 50. Elway was like, yo, I don't want to make you the highest paid coordinator when I'm bringing in a defensive minded coach that we liked before you. And it was probably, in hindsight, one of those decisions, Zach, you wish you could have back.
Yeah, because it went from potentially Kyle Shanahan. I know we've said this like a billion times on the podcast, but Kyle Shanahan, Wade Phillips pairing to Vance Joseph and Joe Woods. Not exactly comparable.
Yeah. We will get into what Indy looks like on Thursday. I'm seeing questions. What's their defense like? What's this? We're gonna go dive deep into the numbers on Thursday for the head-to-head. So stay tuned for that. Rod Smooth says Vance Joseph's not a good coach. Should have been fired last year. Don't make sense to have a top cornerback and he's not the best receiver. That's crazy. Look, guys, let's dial it back here. Okay, Vance Joseph. I like what Zach said earlier. He's shown that he still has some flaws. But this dude carried the water for the first, let's just call it the first 2 quarters of the season. And now the offense is getting up to speed, and it's a very nice, balanced 3-phase team. He deserves Vance Joseph still. I know the last thing fresh on our mind, recency bias is what it is. It's part of the human condition. We think of the 554 total yards from scrimmage and Jameis Winston's 497 passing. We think of Jerry Jeudy's 235 yards and the ignoble record that he set against his former team. We think of all those because it's the last image we have in our minds. But let's not forget the achievements this defense, even in that game, Zach.
True.
2 pick sixes, a game-clinching interception in the end zone, by the way, multiple sacks. This is a very good defensive coordinator. There's a reason why, for example, ESPN is already linking him to various head coaching vacancies in the hiring cycle.
Selfishly, I kind of hope he gets one of those. I don't think he should be fired. He's earned enough benefit of the doubt, but I think he's hasn't been scrutinized at all this season, Chad, because the defense has been so outstanding. This is the first time where the defense just completely broke down, at least on in the secondary. So going forward, all eyes should be on him. The criticism and scrutiny should be on him as to how he adjusts. Is he going to play Levi Wallace? Is he going to put PS2 predominantly now on the opponent's number 1 wide receiver? Going forward, is he going to show he can learn from this, or is he going to just keep repeating the same old mistakes? I think that's going to be the focus.
Let's switch gears for a second here, Zach. I want to bring up your article about Sean Payton and why the big shocker last week. I mean, we heard rumblings in the couple days leading up to, including game day Monday night. So this happened a week ago tomorrow. They moved on from Josh Reynolds. But considering his starting position, he was a starter when he went down. And by the way, he got injured on a touchdown reception against the Raiders at home. So kind of ironic there. But then he's waived. Josh Reynolds. So it's like, hey, what's going on here? And here's what Peyton said. And then, Zach, I want your analysis on this. Quote, from a roster management standpoint with Josh, it just became a numbers game. He's done a great job. We would have liked to have been able to keep him, but as guys got healthy and came from injured reserve, we had to have space. Some of the younger guys have been playing well, and I wish him the best. He's one of those guys that helped us get to where we're at right now. Close quote.
I think this is one of those times where it's completely honest and not coach speak. That's he told you right there. He wants to play the younger receivers. It's like, sorry you got, you hurt your hand, Josh. Sorry you got shot, but we like Vele more. We like Troy Franklin more. We like Marvin Mims more. And to Sean Payton's credit, getting them more involved has opened up the offense for Bo Nix. The 93-yard touchdown to Marvin Mims. I don't know that Josh Reynolds is making that play. I remember him dropping a touchdown earlier in the season. It's one of those things where you wanted another veteran behind Courtland Sutton. It didn't work out, but it's a good thing it didn't work out because that means your homegrown guys, your in-house guys were developed enough to the point where you don't need that veteran buffer. You can just throw them right in.
2 years, $14 million deal earlier this year. And he's gone just like that. He did say he took to social media following his release to give a message to Broncos country in which he said, quote, Josh Reynolds said, quote, I just wanted to give thanks to the Broncos country for accepting me into a top-notch organization and giving me a chance to ball. I wish nothing but the best for the team and my guys I grinded with all year, close quote. So, and he did get claimed, Zach.
Yeah, he's with Jacksonville now, and very classy response by Josh. And I do wish him the best out there with the Jaguars, but I like what the Broncos have with the young guys.
We have one of our favorite Bronco pop culture cross pollinators here from the Super Chat Superstar community. And Chris Chance is saying, hi, Chad and Zach. Still the best in the biz. Thank you, bro. Zach, little soprano for you. Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. Silvio Dante, hashtag Denver Broncos for life, hashtag Bo Vader. I love it, dude. I've been watching a little Sopranos in the nighttime, like when I lay down, I'm like trying. I've watched it a million times, but I usually go through Sopranos, not necessarily the whole series, but I usually turn it on. I go through little phases, probably once or twice a year. And I'm at the point, Zach, at the end of, is it the first season where Bompancero, I'm not going to say his first name lest we get flagged, but Bompancero is found out to be,
he went to Puerto Rico.
Yeah, we know what he was doing in Puerto Rico with the feds, and so his best friends had to pull his card in the utmost, let's say, finality. That's where I'm at. And Silvio, he was in on that. He was there, and he knew him longer than any of the guys. Well, maybe except Paulie.
If I wasn't sick, Chris, I would try to imitate Silvio, but I appreciate you sending that through. One of the best characters in the best show of all time, bar none.
Did you ever watch his follow-up on Netflix where he kind of it's like I want to say Telluride, but it's not that because that's in that's here close to home. It's after Norway Town, whatever it's called. Stevie Van Zandt Netflix. What's it called? Lilyhammer. Did you ever watch that?
I heard it was like a Sopranos spinoff, but I never saw it. Scott says it's okay.
I liked it, but it's much lighter hearted. It's not so serious drama. There's plenty of drama in it, but for Soprano geeks out there that want to see more of him in kind of that character, check it out. It's old news. It's one of the original Netflix original series, actually. Yeah, Norwegian something, Scott says. And that actually makes part why it's kind of as lighthearted as it is some of the Norwegian humor / naivete, or as some people pronounce it, naivete. It's worth a watch, though. If you're looking for something, you're kind of in between things. But nowadays, Zach, there is so much content out there to consume from a streaming perspective. Honestly, if someone asks me, I'll say, yeah, I think it's worth a watch. I do. But am I telling you to go specifically seek it out instead of, say, watching like Sopranos? The Wire. That's old school. Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul. What else? Yellowstone is probably one of the latest ones that my wife got me into. I didn't think I'd be that interested in cowboy dudes on a ranch in Montana running stuff. I almost said a naughty word, but it's actually really, really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, I can't recommend too many shows. I consume most of my content on YouTube. I'm a big podcast, long form podcast watcher. So, like you said, there's so many choices out there that people there's nothing never not to watch, you know.
Indeed.
Triple
Okay.
negative.
What are you guys watching? Tell us in the chat what you've been binging lately besides football. Yeah, we know that's the joke, Todd. We know that's the joke of the. You got to watch Sopranos. So they're all wise guys, right? So what have they canonized? We talk about the Sopranos and it entertains us, but to them, The Godfather, that's like
Yeah.
made about wise guys. So like the one character, I'll spell it out because I love you, Todd. The one character that was referenced by Chris, Silvio Dante, in the little Sopranos crew of made men, he's kind of gives him a little comedic relief once in a while, doing impressions of Michael Corleone. And that's they're like, come on, give it to us, Silvio. And he goes, just when I thought I was out, and he does the whole thing and they all laugh. They get a laugh out of it. So yes, good catch. I'll give you props that you knew that was from Godfather. So good for you, big dog.
I also like how they poke fun at the Godfather series. They're like, Godfather 1, classic. Godfather 2, great follow. Godfather 3, kind of misunderstood. It's definitely the weakest in the series.
It is. It kind of goes off the rails a little bit. The first episode or the first season of this show, Spartacus, I will concur, was legit. I didn't like it as much after the original Spartacus actor passed away, unfortunately, from cancer. And not to say that the guy they found to replace him wasn't good. He wasn't as good, though. And it wasn't the guy you bonded with. And imagine, Zach, you're into Sopranos, right? And you watch the whole first season only when it's coming out, not where you can just go binge and stream it all. But you're watching it in real time. Then the season breaks and you got to wait till the new one comes out. And when it comes out, someone else's cast as Tony Soprano. That's what happened in Spartacus, but it's still worth a watch. It's good.
I wouldn't have done that for Sopranos. I wouldn't have done that for Entourage. You take Jeremy Piven out of that as Ari Gold. It's not the same show. So I totally get it.
Now, movies, yes. Reservoir Dogs. Toby Wong. Toby Wong. I could quote that movie actually all day long. Me and my friends, we were huge nerds about Tarantino in the 90s, especially. But okay, our conversation is thank you, Chris. Sometimes it's nice to have a little bit of a little pop culture twist and we go down and segue a little bit. But I want to see here. Oh, Reservation Dogs. That's a show. Hold on. Dat gum. I just got schooled, Zach. There's a show called Reservation Dogs. So that's he's recommending it when I said, hey, what are you watching? Comedy series about 4 Native American teenagers growing up on a reservation in eastern Oklahoma. Interesting. I'll check it out, dude. That's interesting. Appreciate the assist on that, my friend. All right, Zach, I want to see if there's any news we may have missed from earlier. Got a lot of people in the room. What's good? Hope everybody's doing well.
I seen some people asking about Brandon Jones. We won't know anything until Wednesday when the first injury report comes out. I wanted to just say that real quick.
Yes. Including maybe a little bit more information on Riley Moss, like, hey, now that it's kind of out in the news wire stratosphere that it's not looking good for Riley Moss, can someone at least try and get to the bottom of it and at least get coach to maybe mad dog them and say, why are you asking me this? At least try. Do it one time. One of the senior dudes can get away with it. Zach Kliss could get away with it.
Probably. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised after the season it came out that he had like a grade 1 MCL tear and he was playing through it. So I definitely see the rest versus getting him out there argument.
And yes, Jason, I got to concur on this. As a fan of the Reacher books, Jack Reacher, the movies were an atrocity. That you would cast Tom Cruise to play a 6'5" beefcake blonde ex-Marine major and from the MP police. The TV series did him right, and I was really stoked on it. And Longmire, hey, Code, Longmire's dope, but how much? Look, I've been in Laramie. I've spent time there. There's not that much crime going around to float a show for 5 seasons, so you do have to slightly suspend disbelief for a minute to kind of allow yourself to believe that there are murders happening on the reg and like all kinds of stuff going on in little old Laramie, Wyoming. But it's definitely a good show. The character work's really, really good. But there's a good question here, Zach, from I almost skipped over it. Where to go? Got to find it from. I just had it. Where'd it go? On Facebook. I'll find it. Hang tight, guys. Yeah, we got that one. No. Dang it. I'll find it here in a second. Rodney. Was it Rodney? No. Yeah, it was YouTube. Rodney Garcia. Hang tight. There it is. Sorry, guys. Who's your dream first round pick for the Broncos 2025, Zach? And what position?
Probably Alshon Jenti, but he's going to probably go top 15. And Broncos, I wouldn't trade up for the best running back or tight end or receiver available in round 1 is my dream pick. But we're too far away from the draft, Rodney. I believe the Broncos for Breakfast boys, Scott and Nick, had a mock draft earlier today. So
they did. They did. I highly recommend you give that a listen for some deep dive insight on the class. But for me, I want to see how not the season ends, but like some of these open-ended situations, like for example, Bob Morris yesterday published kind of he's doing the kind of off-season preview, and part 2 of his installments really showcased the number of you could argue that every NFL team faces an exodus of free agents at the end of every season because you've got exclusive rights, you've got restricted, you've got unrestricted. But the Broncos really are, I should say, facing that. And if you get down into the unrestricted guys, there's some key dudes there you got to make decisions on that are going to affect your first round strategy, specifically Garrett Bowles. So if you don't decide to bring him back, you have to basically use your first round pick on a left tackle. I mean, do you have to? No, but like you would be remiss with a young burgeoning franchise quarterback to go rolling the dice on trying Mike McGlinchey on the left side, for example, because, hey, he played left at Notre Dame and let's put Alex Palczewski at right tackle. Like that's a Band-Aid solution. You would need a legitimate, long-term, sustainable solution. And I still think, Zach, the best of both worlds, having your cake, eating it too, is either to extend Bowles and do it ASAP or just franchise tag him and kick the can down the road one more year.
I'm feeling pretty confident, though, in the coaching to the point where if the Broncos don't use a first-round pick on a tackle, if it's a second, third, fourth-round pick, they could still get a quality starter. Look at the work they've done with Luke Wattenberg. Look at the work they did with Palcho, like you mentioned. The coaching is really good along the offensive line. But assuming they have left tackle locked down, the entire offseason, especially round 1 of the draft, has to be to surround Bo Nix with more weaponry.
But that's one of the cool things that we hope to see. I remember talking about this early in the season when people were going, what the heck? It was true. Everything PFF said and the 33rd team and the like, that we suck at the skill positions. And what we were saying early in the season is, hey, hopefully if Bo Nix ends up being a young franchise quarterback that comes into his own this year, by the natural physical laws of the universe, guys around him are going to start popping and emerging. Look at how the receivers, for example, Zach, last year in Houston went from no-namers to like studs, right? And we've steadily seen that take place for the Broncos. Not only, I mean, Cortland Sutton, dude, he's got like over 500 yards just the last 4 games or something like that. I ran the numbers earlier, but I'm talking, Zach, Marvin Mims coming into his own. That 93-yard reception was nice to see after all the ball carrying he's been doing, like the handoffs and everything. It's really cool to see him get a long receiving touchdown. But Troy Franklin, and then of course Devon Vele at the very top. Like I think we all get excited by Marvin Mims' speed and that twitch and the playmaking pop that he brings to the table, and Franklin's speed too. But Vele is a straight stud, tough as nails, warrior over the middle, clutch player. And those guys are coming into their own because as Bo Nix rises, just like the franchise quarterback in the Tide, he's floating their boats too.
I saw during one of the games yesterday that entering week 14, Cortland Sutton and Bo Nix had the most completions of quarterback and receiver duos in the NFL with 42. The next one after that is Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp, and then Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. So really good company to keep. You mentioned the Texans with the receivers. What happened this year when they brought in Stephon Diggs? It all kind of went sour. Sometimes, like with the Broncos getting rid of Josh Reynolds, if you cut out the veteran or older guy and you kind of coalesce with the younger receivers around your young quarterback, beautiful things can happen. It's why I'm not a proponent, Chad, of throwing a bag at T. Higgins in free agency. I'm a proponent of drafting the next T. Higgins in the first round or wherever.
Hey, what's this about from Polar Nights? Have you seen the news? Vikings are history.
They get to troll.
I do like Vikings on the History Channel. If we're going back to talking about TV shows, that's another legit one for what it's worth. But I don't know what that's about. All right, guys, this is your 2-minute warning. We're going to get into a few messages before we dip. So any burning topics, questions, supers, get them in the chat. We'll get them before we get out of here.
Even with The Sopranos and the movie, I can't believe it's been 51 minutes. Thank you all for a tremendous installment, as always, of the Mile High Huddle podcast. If you're not doing so, please follow us on X at the MHH Pod. You can follow the main account on X at Mile High Huddle, Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott, our producer, at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some merch like we're rocking each and every single podcast, check out mhhmerch.com. Get you some. If you haven't done so yet, drop us a like at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. You can find us and connect with us on Instagram at mile_high_huddle. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you're leaving your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some merch each and every single month. But if anything, y'all, please, 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 very important, the most important step here, subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
Scott says, Marines, your Reacher card is revoked. You know why I confused that? It's Army, obviously. But it's because he was one of the books, I've read them all, but they're similar, but also different, but they're similar enough it's hard to remember. So I have a few that are like etched in memory. I could tell you the whole plot, characters, and everything. But there's a few where it gets a little bit jumbled. What's up, Ron? Hang tight. But there's that one where it's referenced that he was involved as an investigator in that Marine barracks bombing in Beirut. You remember that? But dude, those books are so dang good. That guy, Lee Child, is one of the best writers I've ever read, just in terms of wordsmith, keeping you engaged, painting pictures, moving the story along. Really good stuff. Ron, great show tonight, Chad and Zach on the Mile High Huddle podcast. Go Bo Broncos. Thank you, my friend. Really appreciate you and each and every one of you. Tonight we were kind of a little bit loosey-goosey because, hey, we're on the tail end of a long week off as far as Broncos and news, so it's kind of been bare bones. But appreciate each and every one of you. Please make sure you like the video before you dip on out. It's so helpful to us. But a shout out tonight to the great Super Chat superstars and supporters, the Papa Bear, Sam Bam, the Ronk, Phil McLaughlin, Chris Chances. Love you guys. Can't wait to see you again Thursday night, and we'll do the head-to-head comparison, Broncos-Colts.
Have a great start to your week. We will see you Thursday night. Take care, and as always, go Broncos.